Okay, so he's going to go ahead and place the power supply while there's a good view of this.
Looks to me like you went something like this. Huh?
Yeah, it worked out for mine to turn this side down so that the cords are coming out of the top.
And
the reason for
110 connections on the outside.
Yeah, the reason for that is the cords they'll reach farther by being up at this area here.
So that's about where you have yours.
Yeah, it's about identical.
Okay.
So now, initially,
this is going to be for your memory here, huh?
well, this is the main CPU power supply, or rather, motherboard power supply, I should say. And you can see that it lines up with only one space to plug it in. You can't really screw up. However, there's a second place on the board right here for 12 volt CPU power. And in his case, he'll have a cord that's exactly 8 pins just for that. So I'll leave it to him to plug those in and decide how he wants to route them. So you want this one now, John, on the ATX plug. Yeah, good idea to kind of, if the board starts to flex too much, support it as you're pushing stuff in. So anyway, that would be basically what's coming into the motherboard from the power supply. And now, it's not a bad time to go ahead and route the power supply for all of these riser cards. These are Molex style, and there have been a lot of criticisms of Molex online. The main thing I would say is you want to go direct to them from the power. So now John is just making his electrical connections, continuing with where we were just a moment ago. He has made the 6 Molex power connections right across this second shelf. It's just another cord that's supplied with the power supply. And he's figuring his routing out for his GPU power cords. And he's going to have to make a decision here as to whether or not he's be forced to lower the shelf or maybe even raise the bottom shelf. But we'll see about that in a little while. So now John's beginning to populate these risers with GPUs. And he's already got these set up just so that he can put a brace card back behind all of these GPUs so that they're not just flopping around. Nothing super special here, just take care as you're unpacking, don't drop anything, etc. So John, what are you doing? You've installed a brace across the back of the rack here.
To help keep the video cards in place.
So this is going to allow him to secure them so they can't just wobble around in the breeze.
Tell him about the power supply.
He's decided to keep his second shelf higher.
The reason why is I have a monitor and a keyboard that's going to go between this mining unit, and I'll have another mining unit off to this side. So where the place that I have set aside for it, I have just enough room for 2 mining units, a computer monitor, and a keyboard.
Okay. So he's plugged up some of his power cords. These are the points that we had to extend, as you can see, as they just weren't long enough from the manufacturer. We're going to be leaving all of these communication lines off for the initial boot up, because we'll be booting up with a card in the native motherboard graphics card slot, and we'll load up Windows 10, let it get familiar with the card, set up drivers, and so forth. Once that's completed, we'll be able to move this card up to its slot up here and reboot the machine and add all the rest of the cards.
And a 7th card. The M.2.
So we hope. We don't know if the M.2, maybe someone out there does know, whether you can use the M.2 to PCI converter to support another GPU. We're probably going to find out. Well, so as not to miss something, John's about to unpack his solid state drive. It's not a very big drive, it's like 128 gig. Again, you don't need a lot for mining, so why waste the money? But he'll unpackage this, and it's really pretty simple. He'll just find a place that's neat and tidy to strap it down. He'll plug in the SATA communication, the SATA power, and that'll be the end of that.
Is that what that is? This is
That's SATA communication.
where's
SATA
the
power
is one of those other cords, huh?
Yeah, it can be found on one of your power supply provided cords. Where are all of them?
I wrapped them up because I thought I was done.
Okay. So, John has plugged in his SATA cables. You can see one is communication, that's the little one, and the other one is power, that's the bigger one, with the orange, black, red, black, yellow. And so he's going to be fastening this down to a shelf, and he'll be checking out his motherboard documentation just to see if it makes any difference where he plugs in his SATA COM to this SSD. Alright, so this motherboard would not accept DDR3 RAM, so we had to go get DDR4. It's a slight upgrade, slight cost difference, but
About $18.
yeah. So now we'll be putting the DDR4 in the motherboard, which will be necessary before we can get this machine running.
This is the way. That good to you?
Looks good to me.
Boom. Goes the dynamite.
All right. Yes, we're back, and as you can see, he's mounted his solid-state hard drive, and it's got its power and communication hooked up. Now he's got to get a header jumper assembly put in right here on the motherboard, because without this, you'll turn the power on and nothing happens, and you'll think, oh dear God, what's wrong with everything? Well, there have to be two pins shorted together there for it to turn on. There's another couple of pins that, when shorted, resets the board. There's a couple of pins for power indication LED, and there's another couple of pins for hard disk activity. So we've ripped one of these out of a
Power button.
old desktop.
16.
All it really has is a reset, power, and hard drive activity LEDs. And John is looking at how to hook those up. So that's what's happening right now. We're really close to powering this machine up. And that'll be